What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Collider Interview Studio at TIFF 2024 at the Cinema Center, brought to you by Range Rover Sport. I don't like comparing my interviews, but I have to say, yours was one of my most anticipated.
Oh, thank you.
I respect you as the star of the movie, but Bing, oh my, what a soulful performance from a dog that I never expected to experience in my life.
Yeah, I mean, he is one of the most soulful creatures, and he delivered. He will break your heart and melt you, unless you are heartless altogether.
Oh, there he goes.
He really is. There he goes. Just look at him. He that's all he has to do. It's just.
It immediately brings me back to the bed, and just like that stare that I don't think I'll ever forget. I'm getting ahead of myself. Clearly, I know what your movie is. When we're at a film festival, a lot of our audience will not know about The Friend just yet. So I guess I'll give this duty to one of you. Would you mind giving a brief synopsis of your film?
Sure. The Friend is the story of a writer and a teacher who lives in a very small rent-controlled apartment in the West Village in New York City. And her kind of great friend and mentor in life, and a more notable writer than she, unexpectedly dies. And he bequeaths to her his 150-pound Harlequin Great Dane. And she winds up taking this dog in against her better judgment, because she realizes that the dog is grieving the loss of his master as much as she's grieving the loss of her friend. And so they slowly get to know each other, get to tolerate each other, and then eventually begin to love each other, while at the same time, Iris, the character, is somehow trying to manage keeping the dog there, giving the dog away, all of that.
I'm a dog lover, so when the movie started off, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, who wouldn't take this dog in? But I'm also a New Yorker, so when you start bringing up like 500 square feet and rent control, I understand the pressures there. She makes the right decision, though. So this is a beautiful story that is an adaptation. And one of my favorite things about an adaptation is you respect the source material, but you also find ways to make it your own. So can you tell me some aspects of the book where you kind of found space for yourselves to make this version of the story your own?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of space in the book, if you're familiar with it. It's a very interior story, but Sigrid, who wrote the book, Sigrid Nunez, I mean, she didn't even give her characters names. So like, it's far from a kind of movie blueprint. We had a lot of work to do.
And it's very much an interior, as Scott's saying, it's kind of one narrator, interior kind of monologue in a sense, even though she digresses often in terms of literary experiences and dogs and whatnot. But the through line was in the book, which is this woman taking in this dog and the relationship that follows.
Because she doesn't have a name in the novel, I am curious, how did Iris come to you? Was it kind of like on the spot, or did you play around with options?
You know, do you remember? I don't.
We played around. It always takes a little bit of time to.
We changed the last name.
Yeah, the character was originally called Iris Dunn, but when you make movies, you have to run all names through what's called E&O. So in order to make sure that there isn't a person out there who might object to that. So we named her Iris Dixon after our good friend and great screenwriter, Leslie Dixon.
Oh, that's beautiful. Someone literally just brought up that same problem earlier, and it's something I hadn't really thought about, but it is important with character names. So I was reading, and I'd also been aware of this, that it's not super easy to get a script into Bill Murray's hands. And you stepped in and did that. So I am curious what that's like from your perspective. Is it easy for another actor to get a script into Bill Murray's hands?
No, not really. And, you know, we have worked together before, but we're not always in touch. Though having gone through this second movie, I think we probably will be in touch more often. But yes, I wasn't sure if his number had changed, and certainly people have asked me before, would I pass on a script to him? And I've done it one other time. But when the guys talked to me about who they were thinking of for the character of Walter, and they came up with that name, I instantly just fell in love with that idea and made it my mission to make it happen. And I at first I was like a little defensive and said, well, wait, are you just using me to get to Bill Murray? Is that what this is about? You know, that speaks to my self-esteem. But yes, I loved the idea. I thought I'd take a shot at it. I sent him a text and he responded right away. And And then, but also the other caveat is that you will not be able to send him an email. He's not going to read it digitally. So we had to have the script printed and hand delivered by me, yours truly. And I think, I managed to track down where he was at a certain time. He doesn't have an agent. He doesn't have a person to call. So it was all, this may work. And if it does work, it still may not work. It still may, we just don't know when he's going to be there, or, you can't rush the process with him. He loved the story right away. He read the book right away. But then, he didn't like saying what dates he was available necessarily.
Yeah, availability was an issue, but he never wavered
character.
on the project, right?
No, it was always a yes.
Yeah.
You just couldn't say February 18th to 26th, we just, those kind of things were just annoying details to him.
Appreciate the extra legwork you put into making that happen.
When he actually showed up to the production office for hair and makeup stuff, we were like, okay, he's in the movie.
You don't believe it until someone is physically there and it's
And
happening.
then when we arrived to the set on the first day of shooting with him, we said, okay, he's in the movie.
Naomi, now I want to come back to you about you signing on yourself. I'm going to do a big two-part question about this. When you first agreed to make this movie, what single part of it were you most looking forward to? But then I also want to know something about the experience that wound up being more creatively fulfilling than you ever could have imagined.
Oh, wow. Well, I would say I fell in love with the story of it. The absurdity of having to take on this massive creature in such a limited environment at such a point in her life where she was not able to, and the least likely candidate. So I loved that story. I like, how do you move through that? How do you navigate grief and inconvenience and anger all at the same time? It was something that I hadn't really I've definitely addressed grief in many of my films, and that does tend to repeat it if there is repetition in the choices I make. But I think it's an endlessly fascinating subject. But this was also about a really powerful friendship. And I think romance is explored in great detail and family stuff, but not friendship so much. And I think as you get older, friendships become extremely meaningful to you. So I loved that part of it as well. And what was the second part?
Something that wound up being more creatively fulfilling than you ever could have imagined at the start.
I mean, yeah.
I figured that would be the answer.
Because the rule is working with animals and children is actually going to cost you, time and money. It often goes badly, and it couldn't have gone more beautifully.
I mean, he presented challenges to us, but he is, as you can see, he's such a lovely creature. I mean, he's so soulful.
He always gets up when we talk about
Dude,
him.
are you in my shot?
Yeah, we're talking about you, man.
So pleased with it. He knows he's taking the compliment right now. I see the tail wagging.
We had, we searched for the dog that was going to play Apollo with our trainer, Bill Berloni. But when we met Bing and immediately fell in love with him, his owner and also trainer, Bev Klingensmith, that became the absolutely invaluable aspect of being able to realize the movie, because Bing loves Bev so much that we could move Bev around in order to attract Bing's attention. Bev would become Bing's eyeline. So it was so, like I say, truly invaluable in terms of being able to capture his performance.
Do you each remember, for all of you in your respective roles on the production, the first time you saw something in Bing that signaled to you, Bing is my perfect scene partner and also the perfect star for this film?
We went to Iowa to meet Bing.
And we saw that position.
It was just this dog is the most charismatic, he's like the Cary Grant of dogs. He's just there was just no looking at more dogs after we met him. It was just super clear. We just stopped looking and made the movie when he was ready.
That's such a beautiful thing. And how about for you as a scene partner?
I mean, the first time I met him, and by the way, I was given this program of how the training was going to go. And I was like, they don't understand. I know animals. I love animals. I warm to them very quickly. I'm not, squeamish or slobber all over me. Do whatever you need. I thought this was overly ambitious, and I would bond with him right away. But it was very carefully thought out by our brilliant Bill Baloney. We had to start with 2 meetings a day, each for 20 minutes, because you don't want to overwhelm either of us, I suppose, and you have to build that trust. And so we kind of just rolled around in my basement, and then each day slowly added more and more tricks to the training, and it was an instant bond.
This is a really weird question, and the answer might be no, but is there anything about a human scene partner and a dog scene partner that you find to be similar?
Wow, that's a unique question.
Well, you have to connect. I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, there's a lot of good jokes available there, but I'm going to say quite earnestly that you have to feel it, and you have to respond and be open to a dance of some kind. And things were there on the page, and most of the time he would execute them exactly as we planned for, which is kind of insane. And then other times it took longer to get to them, but we'd get something else even more magical. And that comes from, really trying to move away from cameramen and lighting people and, like all the other fuss that needs to go on in order to present a beautiful film, so that you two creatures can connect. And that means eye contact, it means warmth, it means soul, it means, I don't know.
I'll follow up on that, because you just brought up the need to kind of, roll with things. And sometimes you find that unexpected magic by veering off course. Can you name a time on set when you had to pivot because something wasn't going precisely to plan, but you found something better in the process?
There's a moment when Iris thinks she's going to be leaving the dog with Walter's second wife, Tuesday, played by Constance Wu, and that doesn't work out. So she has to rush to a meeting with her publisher with the dog. And she gets to the building, and there is only a revolving door, and she tries to get the dog into the revolving door, but she can't do it. And the security guard rushes over and starts kind of screaming at her about, no dogs being allowed in the building. And so, it had to be done very carefully, because we didn't want to, Bing to get hurt in the revolving door. But at a certain point, Bing just sat down in the revolving door.
And that's an example
of
saying, an add-on to the question before, is I sat down too.
And it's hilarious.
Because I was reacting to him. So that's two partners in a scene.
And
just
it was
like
really,
two actors,
I love that
everyone was
example.
just staring.
Yeah. I'll wrap with 2 questions here. First one for you, Naomi, because you brought this up earlier, and I know everyone's talking about this, how, grief kind of, follows through your filmography in a really strong way. But I think about the movie Penguin Bloom a lot, and the fact that you are leaning into animal movies now hardcore, because I adore this movie and I love that movie so much. Is there anything about, I don't know, where you're at in your career and what you're interested in that is drawing you to animal-centric stories?
I don't know, maybe I'm getting softer. But this has felt like it feels timely. There's some rough things going on in the world, and there's something about this that feels like the balm we need. It's like it reminds you friendships are important, love is important, and so I think it's just where I'm at in my age, softer.
I feel like everyone out there could
Done a
benefit
lot of
from think like whenever I feel like doom and gloom or I'm bummed out by the reality of the world, all I have to do is look at one animal in my life,
Yeah.
and it's like all of that vanishes, even if it's for the briefest of moments.
Right.
Speaking of that, here's my last question for all three of you. Clearly, I'm a big animal lover, and the beating heart in this movie is just absolutely through the roof. I want to know a specific animal in your life who has made a monumental impression, like an animal who has maybe made you feel whole in a way that you didn't expect.
Well, with me, it's very it's a very easy answer, because I took in a rescue dog maybe 20 years ago now. Her name was Tiger. She was about a year old. She was a very striped, brindled cattle dog mix. And the dog had kind of just walked off the street into a person's yard. And I saw the dog at a video store in Los Angeles when I was visiting. And I wound up adopting it. I had no interest at that point in adopting the dog. But Tiger turned out to be like, I always called her perfect, because she was like a perfect dog. She loved all people. She loved all humans. She was super playful. And she just, I mean, Scott knew her super, super well. She just like opened you up to the world in a very particular way. And so Tiger.
Beautiful example. Thank you for sharing that.
I mean, I had a childhood dog called Pal. The whole time I was growing up until I went away to college in New York. And I remember Pal left us the night before I came home on a Christmas break. And I've always missed Pal. I've got a picture of Pal in my office.
And I would say, I mean, I've got a beautiful dog now called Izzy that I got at the beginning of COVID. But just before COVID started, I lost Bob, who I had for 20 years. He's a Yorkshire Terrier, and so he made a massive impact on my life.
I love hearing it. Animals are clearly very important to me. I've got my Dewey with me for the rest of my life. He completed me. He made me whole, and he sent me out into the world a cat lover for the first time ever. So I appreciate him. I also appreciate all of you for taking the time to share some of your experience with us, but especially Bing. Congratulations on the friend. I can't wait for everybody out there to experience it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.